Furiosa! We've come too far. Furiosa! They took Furiosa!
9 years ago, Master Director George Miller revived the Mad Max universe, a classic from the 80s. And Mad Max Fury Road went down in history as perhaps the best action film ever made. Furiosa. A Mad Max saga, on the other hand, delves into the origins of the character Furiosa, who was introduced in Fury Road and portrayed by Charlize Theron. The film explores step by step what Furiosa experienced to become the character we know, how she crossed paths with Dementus, who kidnapped her, and later with Immortan Joe, as well as the great warlords of the wasteland and their internal conflicts. First and foremost, it should be noted that expecting a film surpassing Mad Max, Fury Road, would be somewhat unfair. Given how good the first film was, the second one inevitably carried risks. So, how should we evaluate this movie? When we look at Furiosa, we see that very different formulas were followed compared to the first film. Mad Max. Fury Road was a survival and road story filled with action that took place over a few days. We didn't love this film solely for its excellent script, although the script was quite good. Fury Road was a film that left the audience breathless with its intense use of practical effects and incredible action sequences. Far from being satiated with action, the film's action scenes even exhausted the audience. However, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is not a road story spanning a few days. Instead, we follow the 15-year-long revenge story of our main character, Furiosa. The film's focus is very different from Fury Road. Alongside being a revenge story, Furiosa introduces the audience to the Mad Max universe in much greater detail compared to the first film. Fury Road did not have such a concern and was more focused on action and events. With this sequel, it seems George Miller wanted to take a different path and evidently aimed to expand and continue the universe. This approach has inevitably caused the action to take a back seat compared to the first film. This is certainly a directorial choice, and despite the action being less prominent, Furiosa still contains action sequences far superior to the average action film. However, I must say that the use of digital effects in this film really stood out to me. Considering the quality of the action scenes in the first film featured intense practical effects, but it wasn't devoid of digital effects. They were just used very well. In Furiosa, the use of digital effects sometimes distracted me and dampened the impact of some scenes. I can understand that the action was not as central, and therefore the action scenes weren't as meticulously crafted as in the first film. However, considering the long preparation period for this film, the pandemic period that intervened, and the 9 years since the first film, I wish this aspect didn't bother me as much. Don't get me wrong, the action scenes in this film are well above average action films, but given how excellent the first film was, I wouldn't want this one to fall far below that level. Regarding the story and world building elements that overshadow the action, George Miller clearly tried to create a new world and introduce it to the audience with this film. In Fury Road, we saw places like Bullet Farm and Gastown from a distance, but in this film, we can see them in detail and guess what is produced there from their names. There is also the Citadel, Immortan Joe's place, where large amounts of water and food are found, along with ample mechanical resources. As a result, resources are scarce, and the most basic needs are bartered for trade. In the region where the film is set, it is clear that people must live in one of these places and serve its ruler to survive. While watching Mad Max Fury Road, we didn't know exactly where the film was set, and I think this added a sense of mystery and uncertainty to the film. However, in the opening of Furiosa, we see that the events take place in Australia, which I felt was unnecessary information. But as I said, Miller is trying to build a universe, and future films might take place in different locations. Anya Taylor-Joy plays the character of Furiosa. When the casting was first announced, I thought she wouldn't be very suitable for the role, but I believe she did justice to the Furiosa character. While watching the film, you understand that Furiosa is genuinely dangerous and not to be trifled with. Despite the many fight scenes, Anya Taylor-Joy did an excellent job. I didn't find it odd at all when she fought men larger than herself, thanks in large part to the director and the team. The main villain in the film, Dementus, is played by Chris Hemsworth. Dementus portrays a character very different from Immortan Joe. He is ruthless, sadistic, and unreliable. However, compared to Immortan Joe, he is much more pathetic, incompetent, and even overly loud. For this reason, instead of seeing him as a real threat, you just want Furiosa to take her revenge and finish him off quickly. Watching Chris Hemsworth in a villain role was fun, and I can say he delivered what was expected of him. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, in my opinion, doesn't come close to the first film, but it is definitely one of the good films in its genre. My negative criticisms were due to many aspects falling in the shadow of the first film. However, because the film's focus is very different, it neither fully delivers the mad and breathless adventure you might expect, nor entirely avoids being a classic revenge story. Nonetheless, this does not change the fact that Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is one of the good works of its kind.
There will always be war, but to get home, Furiosa fought the world.